I started playing Atlus games with Persona 4, and it being one of my favorite games of all time, I decided I may as well play some of the other games. And boy, I'm glad I played Atlus's other games. After I finished Persona 4, I finished Persona 3 Fez, then went straight on to play Persona 5. Then I wanted to dabble into the SMT series, completing SMT 4 and 5, as well as the first entry of Devil Survivor. Due to personal preference, I definitely ranked the SMT games a step below the Persona franchise for personal taste, mainly because I'm more into the story and characters which Persona shines in. But I will say I do like SMT's battle system more. But what happens when you combine SMT's battle system with Persona's life elements? Well, that's where you get Metaphor. At first I was hesitant to play this game because of how different it looked from all the other Atlus games, but the thing that drew me in was the soundtrack and most importantly the cool wacky art. The fantasy vibe, which I feel like every game franchise delves into at some point, was actually kept fresh in this game and really held up the whole time. And if you're curious to know where I rank this game amongst the other Atlus games, I'd say it sits around my third favorite, with Persona 4 having the top spot and then Persona 3 directly after that. In this video, I want to highlight Metaphor and talk about the game mechanics I feel like Persona might actually benefit from if they incorporated it. And firstly, we finna talk about the social aspect. My favorite part of Metaphor is how different yet connected everyone is due to the world you live in. It being set in a fantasy world with racism at every corner creates this more on edge feel. And you really never know the extent the characters are willing to go to prove themselves and change their position in the world. In Persona, there are many different characters dealing with regular day-to-day struggles, and while simple, it really makes it easier to relate to them. The thing I wish they would change, however, is the ability to discourage the person you're talking to or having to pick the right answers in a social link. Metaphor gets rid of this feature, and instead, if you pick the option the character wants to hear, you get more mag, which is pretty much the game's job points, which made it way easier to complete the different bonds in the game, with me legit being able to do every single bond in the game except for Neurus's. And damn you, Neurus. Bro legit wants you to travel the world just to be able to talk to him. Like, damn, bro. I didn't like you that much anyway. But yeah, this is something that Persona would definitely benefit from, especially since you use social links in those games to further the strengths of the personas. Maybe they can make it to where if you pick the right option, you get extra EXP instead. I would actually like this way more instead of having so many wasted days with different ranks. And since I really like Persona's characters and the social link representatives, and I'd like to experience more of them on a first playthrough, instead of having to replay a 100-hour game. Now moving on to the battle system. I really liked Metaphor's combat, but I definitely don't think anything is wrong with the Persona's one more system. But one thing I will say is not having your whole party die just because the main character died was genuinely a bonus for Metaphor though. As well as being able to restart the battle at any time if you thought you were going to die to avoid a game over. And I feel like Metaphor has this feature because the game's way more difficult than an average Persona game. There are various tough enemies and you have to think smarter. And due to the game being harder, it gives you more sense of reward as well as making you understand the ins and outs of battle more, and pretty much forcing you to be creative with the game's many archetypes. I remember first playing the game, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get multiple archetypes on different characters. Little did I know I would almost max out everybody's archetype skill tree, just so I could progress through the main story, mind you, because the game does get very difficult at times and you have to switch it up. And it's no secret that Persona is very easy. And since the fusing is very fun, I never forget to do it. But most of the time I'm only fusing because I want to. Never because I truly need to, because the games are so easy. And yes, I could turn the difficulty up, which I do, but I feel like seeing how the game is at its base is a very important thing to do. And I mean, come on. I played Persona 5 on the hardest difficulty and barely even noticed I was doing it. That being said, I wish Persona, especially the newer titles and remakes, should make the combat just a little bit more harder to force people to get more creative in combat. Another thing that this does is it allows you to use more of the party members. Whereas in Persona, I normally just have the group of people that I really like to use, and I just stick with them the whole game. Because there are definitely characters in that game that really outshine the other. Whereas in Metaphor, it really comes down to the archetypes mainly. And you can really make any character busted. Yeah, there may be some characters slightly better than others depending on their starting class, but the gaps are way smaller than per se like Persona 3 Reload, when there's actually clear obvious choices on who's better. Metaphor's overworld battles are also a pretty good source to grind, especially the redstones dropping loot, EXP, and money, which I really liked mainly in the beginning stages of the game. Later, I'm not gonna lie, it did get a little tiring, but I thought it was nice being able to farm active resources without having to actually go inside of combat. Though I definitely prefer Persona's sense of progression more due to everything being around your level at all times, so as long as you fight every now and again, you shouldn't really have to grind. Whereas in Metaphor, you need to grind in most segments, which I don't really mind too much, but it can be tedious sometimes. Moving on from battling though, something that Metaphor gets a chef's kiss for is the villains. And this is where this video is going to enter small spoiler territory, nothing crazy, but if you gotta leave, please drop a like before you go, appreciate you. Metaphor has a villain that is consistent the entire game. The focus never shifts from him, and later you find out there's obviously people just as bad as him, if not worse, like Forden, since him and the council are pretty much responsible for the state of the world. But even then, the game really makes you hate Luis most of all, and you'll be fighting him pretty much the whole game reoccurring. Persona endings always get me teary-eyed because of how great the characters are and having to say goodbye to them. But I won't lie, these final bosses be coming out of nowhere. I love me a good twist and honestly don't have a problem with them. But at the same time, it definitely gives me a JRPG guy has to kill a god just cause we gotta make a multiversal vibe. That's how I feel every time I'm fighting a final boss in Persona games. Especially when most of the games you just go around solving regular crimes. And no, I'm not saying murder is a regular crime or taking down a CEO of a company is regular, but you get what I'm trying to say. That's way more regular than just randomly fighting a god that comes out of nowhere that has dimension warping powers, and then having the party come on top without any consequences. Except for Persona 3, of course, rip my goat. But Metaphor stays consistent targeting one man, and him turning into a god at the end of the game low-key makes sense because of all the horrors you face throughout the whole game. Especially with the humans. I mean, just look at my reaction to this.
Oh, my darling, Mama's here. Mama will always be here for you.
Mama about to get her head knocked off, bro. I'm tired of you, bro. Get out of here.
She healed the demon baby?
My mind.
And also I'd like to mention another reason why it makes sense is, I mean, the game is literally about fantasy, so it ties everything inside a nice little bow. Yeah man, let me know if you think Metaphor will ever surpass Persona as it goes on. There will be a sequel, as everyone who's beaten it knows, and I love the world and its characters and honestly can't wait to see more. Obviously Persona is more marketed than Metaphor due to its more calming nature, but it's had way more repetition built up, so who knows? Maybe just give the Metaphor IP some more time, let it build some more games up, and it really could be great. Another thing that I realized while editing this video is, this is one of the first Atlus games that is getting a direct continuation, meaning using the same main character and everything, which I feel like definitely is going to add more depth to the characters, as we're probably going to see more reoccurring characters that aren't just the main character. So I'm very excited for what they do next with the series. With all that being said, let me know your thoughts. I really like making more of these analysis videos. Y'all actually seem to like them. Or not really an analysis, but really just giving my opinions on the games that I play. Mainly Atlus games right now because I spend a lot of my free time playing them. But later I might get more of my opinions on some other game franchises as well. Drop a like and y'all stay safe out there. I'll see y'all in the next one.